Good morning and welcome, friends. Please silence your phones. Today is an auspicious day. November 17th celebrates the starting of the Theosophical movement by HPB in New York City, and it is very poignant that all of the ULTers and other groups are meeting today all over the world and giving it special impulse. We have received a letter of greetings from Mumbai, and in it there is a very important idea to spread. It says that the movement is about ideas, which of course HPB has already told us, and that if the ideas, also according to Plato, rules the world, then it becomes our responsibility to spread the ideas in the secret doctrine and Isis Unveiled and all the other writings that followed it, which is in line with it, so that humanity can benefit from it. But at the same time, we are told that the heart of each student has to become a center of pure impersonal force, so that it can break the clouds of intellectualism and touch human hearts that are ready to hear this philosophy. The Lodge has its declaration, and the policy is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the Theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy and the exemplification in practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis. And it aims to disseminate this idea among Theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as Theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization, and it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by study and otherwise to be the better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. The following is the form signed by associates of the United Lodge of Theosophists. Being in sympathy with the purposes of this lodge, as set forth in its declaration, I hereby record my desire to be enrolled as an associate, it being understood that such association calls for no obligation on my part other than that which I myself determine. Today's reading comes from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. Krishna, tenderly smiling, addressed these words to the prince, thus standing downcast between the two armies. Krishna, thou grievest for those that may not be lamented, whilst thy sentiments are those of the expounders of the letter of the law. Those who are wise in spiritual things grieve neither for the dead nor for the living. I myself never was not, nor thou, nor all the princes of the earth, nor shall we ever hereafter cease to be. As the Lord of this mortal frame experienceth therein infancy, youth, and old age, so in future incarnations will it meet the same. One who is confirmed in this belief is not disturbed by anything that may come to pass. The senses, moving toward their appropriate objects, are producers of heat and cold, pleasure and pain, which come and go, and are brief and changeable. These do thou endure, O son of Bharata. For the wise men whom these disturb not, and to whom pain and pleasure are the same, is fitted for immortality. There is no existence for that which does not exist, nor is there any non-existence for which exists. By those who see the truth and look into the principles of things, the ultimate characteristics of these both is seen. Learn that he by whom all things were formed is incorruptible, and that no one is able to effect the destruction of it, which is inexhaustible. These finite bodies, which envelop the souls inhabiting them, are said to belong to him, the eternal, the indestructible, unprovable spirit, who is in the body. Wherefore, O Arjuna, resulteth 5. The man who believeth that it is this spirit which killeth, and he who thinketh that it may be destroyed, are both alike deceived, for it neither killeth, nor is it killed. It is not a thing of which a man may say, it hath been, it is about to be, or is to be hereafter, for it is without birth and meeteth not death. It is ancient, constant, and eternal, and is not slain where its mortal frame is destroyed. How can the man who believeth that it is incorruptible, eternal, inexhaustible, and without birth, think that it can either kill or cause to be killed? As a man throweth away old garments and putteth on new, even so the dweller in the body, having quitted its old mortal frames, entereth into others which are new. And now today's talk, the law of justice and mercy.
Thank you, friends. Modern science has established law in the physical world and has begun to recognize it in the mental. But the universe cannot be divided into pieces, in one of which law rules and another of which chaos rules. If without cause one person can be born crippled and doomed for a life of misery, while another is born to health and happiness, then the simple law of cause and effect is broken down somewhere. Whether religionist or materialist, all have to admit that there was some process by which we came to be. Logic points to reincarnation as a fact in nature. Mounting scientific evidence like case files where the University of Virginia's Dr. Ian Stevenson confirmed prior life reports by a number of individuals. We just have here as an example, if anyone wants to go out and Google the case of James Leininger. That's one of the many cases that Dr. Stevenson had. The teachings also show that reincarnation, which we're going to have a separate talk on, I think the second week in December, along with this twin doctrine karma, are both merciful and just laws. That mercy without justice is not possible, and that which man calls mercy and justice are defective, errant, and impure. Much of human misery and suffering, the many social evils, inequities, and conflicts in relations are all due to ignorance of karma. The absolute law of universal harmony and the fundamental law of all laws of the universe. The terms law and deity are synonymous. The many gods of ancient religions are personified symbols of intelligent, creative forces of nature, which are specific manifestations and aspects of this law of karma. This law operates in and through every being. The imperishable center of every being is that law of universal justice itself. Karma is not a law imposed on us from without, but constitutes the core and essence of our being. It's the first aphorism on karma. There are 31 of them, and this is the link to all 31, but we are going to be talking about 3 today. The first aphorism is, there is no karma unless there is a being to make it or feel its effects. HPB's Key to Theosophy tells us on page 199 that karma is that law which adjusts wisely, intelligently, and equitably each effect to its cause, tracing the latter back to its producer. Actions of beings of every grade affect all beings in the whole universe, creating a disturbance in the harmony of the universe. There is a tendency in the universe to restore the disturbed equilibrium, and it is incessantly in operation. This restoration takes place through the being or beings who cause the disturbance by the acts. These beings feel pleasure and happiness, or pain and sorrow, according as the causation actions were in accord with or antagonistic to the law of harmony. In the human kingdom, the operation of this law is the law of ethical causation, implying that every thought, word, and deed of man has moral consequences, producing effects in his mental, psychic, moral, and physical life. Harmonious thoughts and actions of higher and noble character are productive of beneficial influences all around, and the effects are reaped in happiness. Those motivated by the baser, selfish nature of man cause destruction and disruption of the harmony of life, resulting in pain and suffering till the disturbed harmony is completely equilibrated and restored, and the parties adversely affected are amply compensated. No power on earth or heaven can take away or prevent the good tidings as reward accruing to anyone who did right, nor deflect or turn away the retributive justice of karma. This law is impersonal in its action of meting out reward or punishment, and takes no account of status or moral character of the persons concerned. Since karma is absolute justice, it is also merciful, as justice and mercy are 2 aspects of one and the same thing. Mercy does not consist in pardoning sins, as it does not meet the ends of true justice. The sinner's mere repentance or being pardoned under man-made laws does not absolve the sinner's responsibility or prevent the retributive justice of karma reaching him at some time or other. Mercy compels the sinner to make adequate adjustment through his own suffering proportional to the sufferings he caused by his act. The one sinned against will reap karmic merit by pardoning the sinner, but the offender still suffers for perhaps many incarnations. the effects of his own wrong actions. This chastens and softens his soul, developing in him the qualities of patience, endurance, resilience, and inner strength. Solemn experiences of pain and sorrow endured for many lives, deeply etched in his inner nature, at last awaken one's inner soul life, and he begins to search for the meaning of pain and its remedy, understands and sympathetically responds to the suffering of others. It is commonly seen how people challenged by apparently insurmountable adversities are able to tap and harness the enormous power and resources of their inner selves, unsuspected and undreamt of by them before, and thus turn adverse conditions into advantage. In short, retributive karma comes not as a punitive despot, but as a friend, teacher, and opportunity to cleanse oneself of the effects of past iniquities and evolve higher and higher in soul life. Adversities of life, if taken in the right spirit, become transformed into opportunities for self-purification and soul development. The offender who injured another receives his karmic punishment. In that painful experience lies hidden the seed of his own redemption and inner growth. The one sinned against received his compensation in full restoration of every loss and pain suffered by him by the act of the sinner. Thus we see how justice of the law of karma is at the same time perfectly merciful. The Doctrine, Volume 1, pages 643 and 644, tell us that there is not an accident in our lives, not a misshapen day, or a misfortune that could not be traced back to our own doings in this or in another life. Yet few know why they suffer. As one generally does not remember the causes he himself produced in former births for the suffering he experiences in present life, it is but natural for him to feel that suffering has come to him unmerited. While the stern law of retribution takes no account of such feeling of unmerited suffering, in its course of restoration of harmony, it provides for compensation in the postmortem state of consciousness called devakan, retributive karma. Retributive karma reaches the ego only when it returns to earth, though. But in devakan, it is rested and recuperated in a state of intense bliss as the essential experiences of life are assimilated. It is thus alone that egos can progress and evolve to the final goal of perfection through reward, punishment, rest, discipline, and experience. This is the mercy of the law of karma. Though retributive karma reaches the ego when reborn, the just and merciful law does not cause the effects of his past inequities to fall at once so as to crush him down, but spreads it over many incarnations, perhaps so as not to exceed his capacity to bear the pain. Strong and deeper characters, however, by the power of their vows and spiritual aspirations, cause their past karma to precipitate more rapidly on themselves than an average person can bear. In either case, man himself determines by his own karma the rate of progress in his soul evolution. A just yet merciful law provides many opportunities to the wicked person to come on the path of righteousness. This merciful aspect of the law is seen in the fact that in all lands, people of a wicked bent of mind are allowed to go on in their destructive course for a long time, even for a whole lifetime. It is selfish intent, motives, and thoughts which are most destructive, which produce evil karma. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, is an ethical precept taught and exemplified by all great teachers in view of the implacable law of karma. He who contemplates vengeance or retaliation against another, a person who injured him, instead of leaving the divine justice of karma to bring about harmonious adjustment, creates a cause for his own punishment and reward for his offender on whom he wreaked vengeance. With right knowledge, or at any rate with a confident conviction that our neighbors will no more work to hurt us than we would think of harming them, the 2/3 of the world's evils would vanish into thin air. Were no man to hurt his brother, karma nemesis would have neither cause to work for nor weapons to act through. Per Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, page 643. Some think that mercy means to be permitted escape from the results of wrongdoing, but this would not be justice, nor would it be merciful to those injured by wrongdoing. We should remember the definition of karma. An undeviating and unerring tendency in the universe to restore equilibrium, which operates incessantly. Some might take this to be merciless, but that would only be because they desire escape from consequences that are unpleasant. The friendly philosopher tells us on page 30 that karma is mercy itself. Professor C.S. Lewis suggests that there is all the difference in the world between forgiving and excusing. Forgiveness says, yes, you have done this thing, but I accept your apology and will never hold it against you. But excusing says, I see that you couldn't help it or didn't mean to. You weren't really to blame. If one were not really to blame, then there is nothing to forgive. In that sense, forgiveness and excusing are almost opposites. It is not possible to dodge karma, but the law of karma does not take into account all the extenuating It is not possible to dodge karma, but the law of karma does take into account all the extenuating circumstances. Karma is action and reaction. However, this reaction is not mechanical, but takes into account the motive, the inner state of the person, and the weight of his past karma. When a mother who wants her child to grow up to be an upright and honest person is severe with him, the law takes into account her good motive, while meting out karmic consequences for her severity. There is a difference in the karmic merit won by a person giving charity boastfully and another person with no such ulterior motive. The inner state of a person is the deciding factor. There is a difference in the karmic consequences reaped by a person losing his temper because he was tired or frustrated, and another who had no such problem. So, the inner state of a person is the sum total of all experiences and circumstances of a given life, as well as those of earlier lives. A stingy and an unkind person often has the background of a difficult childhood or an exposure to severe poverty, so also our mental, moral, and psychic constitution is ours under karma from previous lives. A person born with an especially strong tendency toward gossip or sensuality or greed has to fight harder to curb these tendencies than another who is not burdened with the weight of his past karma. Also, 11, karmic responsibility is in proportion to one's knowledge. So goes the mercy of the law of karma. Another meaning of mercy is compassionate, absolute. Compassionate is not just pity. It is an all-embracing universal law for all the lives and that breathing. It aims at universal good. It cannot make B happy at the expense of A. It desires growth of every being, even if it entails suffering. The ultimate aim of this law is that all creatures acquire perfection. Pain that is experienced in the process of growing up must be seen in the correct perspective. Happiness or unhappiness should not be our criterion for judging the law. Individual unhappiness may be the discipline taken by the ego to eliminate defects and to acquire fortitude and sympathy. Mr. Judge writes, and were it not for the perfect mercifulness of karma, which is merciful beyond because it is just, we ought long ago to have been wiped out of existence. The very fact that the oppressor, the unjust, the wicked, live out their lives is proof of mercy in the great heart of nature. They are thus given chance after chance to retrieve their errors and climb, if even on the ladder of pain, to the highest height of perfection. Nor is the shielding from necessary pain true mercy, but is indeed the opposite. Sometimes it is only through pain that the soul acquires the precise knowledge and strength it requires. At our stage, we cannot trace back the effect to the cause. We are advised to accept the woes of birth, make improvements where possible, and remember that the future is determined by how we react to the given situation. Our best may not be much by worldly standard, and yet karma will reward by providing a better apparatus or better environment in subsequent incarnations. We must learn to imitate the law. Whenever we are tempted to condemn or criticize, we must remember that the inner state of the person is known only to the law of karma. We must give a helping hand to the wicked person, regarding him as one whose boots have become heavy with mud, remembering that the soiled garment you shrink from touching may have been yours yesterday in previous life, may be yours tomorrow in a subsequent life. If in this life we are not greedy, it is no guarantee that we may not have been so in the past life, or will not be so in a future life. Yet another merciful aspect of the law, that of interdependence. We derive the benefits by virtue of being part of the whole. On the material plane, we enjoy the benefit of various gadgets and systems, although we did not invent them. The same holds true on the intellectual and spiritual planes. The particular individual in whom the final illumination appears is called a genius, an inventor, one inspired, but he is only the crown of a great mental work created by unknown people about and before him. It is impossible to separate the individual from his kin. Through the Gates of Gold, pages 12 and 31 of this beautiful little book, tells us that on the mental steps of 1,000,000 men, Buddha passed through the Gates of Gold. A great writer or poet derives benefit and inspiration from the work of those who went before him, including a well-developed language that is ready for him to use. Buddha attained to enlightenment, deriving inspiration from scriptures like the Vedas and Upanishads, and the teachings of great beings who went before him. More specifically, another individual can help us mitigate or overcome unfavorable karma. Aphorism 12, and also ULT pamphlet 21, suggests that karmic causes already set in motion must be allowed to sweep on until exhausted. But this permits no person to refuse to help his fellows and every sentient being. The effects may be counteracted or mitigated by the thoughts and acts of oneself or of another, and then the resulting effects represent the combination and interaction of a whole number of causes involved in producing the effects. That's aphorism 13. Here it is. Mr. Judge mentions in Notes on the Bhagavad Gita that we are born in the company of those with whom we have set up strong karmic affinity. In reassuming a body, other beings once known to the man arrive into incarnation at the same time and bring into action affinities, attractions, and powers that can only act through them and him. These effects, divergences, and swayings are well known to occultists. This law is both an angel of mercy and a messenger of justice, for it is also a means whereby nature saves men, often from damnation. Great spiritual beings called Nirmanakayas remain present in the Earth's invisible atmosphere, people that are current in space with entities powerful for good alone, alleviating to an extent the misery of humanity. Believers in the existence of a personal God say that they find solace in belief in a God who forgives the sins of mortals when prayed to in repentance, and a God that grants their wishes. But their views are contrary to the truth and fact. HPB shows that such a belief clashes with justice and logic, and inevitably leads to every conceivable crime and checks in the progress of mankind. Truth, justice, mercy are in fact the three aspects of one and the same reality and are inseparable. The final destiny of all beings who make up the universe is through self-effort and merit to consciously reunite with the one life from which they have emerged in full possession of Paramartha, which is absolute existence. Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, page 54. This stupendous universal evolution is governed by the law of karma. Therefore, absolute justice is inherent in the whole, and which consequently is the essential quality of development of the soul of every being. Knowledge of this verity is the true knowledge and realization of the ultimate destiny of human existence. Deity is law, and law is deity. It is justice itself, whose heart is mercy, which, pervading the universe, constitutes the essential quality of the very heart and soul of every being. Hence Plato taught. He taught that justice subsists in every soul, and that it is the greatest good of its possessor. True mercy is strictest justice, and true justice is mercy itself. Restoration of disturbed harmony is the strictest justice by which individuals feel the good effects produced by their good actions as happiness, and evil effects produced by their evil actions as pain and sorrow. Retributive karma comes as our teacher and deliverer, because it is only through repeated suffering, life after life, which are the fruits of our own karma, that we gradually and slowly, in degrees, learn to discriminate rightly between good and evil, come to understand what makes for happiness and what for sorrow, what binds the soul and what sets it free, and thus, through development of spiritual discrimination, evolve in soul life, whose end is emancipation through self-realization. So karmic retribution comes for us to learn the lesson from the school of life. In no other way can we progress toward final emancipation. The justice of karma is mercy itself, compassion absolute. This merciful law generously provides opportunities for a person to mend his ways. This is illustrated in the episode of the Shishupala in the Mahabharata, who was allowed to do wrong 100 times and punished only towards the end of the long period of opportunity given to him by Krishna to rectify his mistakes. Mercy of the just law is also seen in mortal life of the ego on earth, in the fact that not only are his past good actions rewarded with happiness, but the pain and loss it might have suffered by the evil actions of others in the past life or lives are compensated in the present one, or in the next, in fullest measure with happiness and opportunities of a good life. Though we may not remember our unwise action causing pain and suffering, every person nevertheless sees the perfect justice of all the disappointments and sorrows of their lives at the moment of their death, when they stand in the light of the divine presence of their higher self and review in minutest detail every event of the life they are quitting, even down to the vaguest thought or feeling that ever crossed their minds. In the same way, the ego sees in a prenatal preview, just before it is born in a new body, at the end of its devachanic tenure, the perfect justice of all that awaits it in the earth life it is poised to enter. In the light of the higher self, we begin to understand that by right knowledge and right attitude on our part towards our detractors, the enmity can be transformed into friendship and hatred into love. We thereby not only grow and evolve ourselves in spiritual life, but also cause to lighten to some extent the heavy burden of the karma of the world, and help humanity in this higher evolution. We are going to stop at this point and open the floor for comments and questions.
You stated that karmic responsibility is in proportion to one's knowledge. So that means that as you know more, you have greater responsibility.
Correct.
Both, I guess, personal and also for humanity in general, right?
Sure.
So can you expand on that a bit? What does that mean in theosophical terms? As in, students of Theosophy, do they have more responsibility because we see this as something of great importance, this body of knowledge, and we're exposed to it, and that makes us more responsible, right?
Sure.
As members of society.
Yes, it does.
So we need to be very careful with our actions, and
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, and it's said that Theosophists are relied on because of all of this information that they are exposed to, and that they have the opportunity to put into their daily lives, and that they're looked to for the future of humanity. Because the great majority, although many of them may be Theosophists, have never heard of the word, but we are exposed to the path. We're shown the path to advancement of ourselves and humanity. So with that being shown to us, it seems like we would have a greater, we definitely have a greater responsibility to ourselves and others around us.
Another question was, you made the distinction between excuse and forgiveness, and mercy is it more in line with forgiveness and not excuse? In karma, you said karma is mercy, and you said excuse is one thing, but forgiveness is another. How does that come into? Can you repeat that part in regards to mercy?
It says to the effect that forgiveness means that I see what you did, but I will never hold that against you. Okay, that is as far as you can go, because you cannot take on that other person's karma. They have to pay for that through the law. The other part of it is that, I know you didn't mean to do it. Well, perhaps you may or may not. I don't know what your particular circumstance is, but that shows that if you are not guilty, then you don't need to apologize. So I think we've all had people tell us they were sorry about something, or that they took on responsibility they didn't really have. They weren't responsible for it to a great extent. It didn't seem that there was. So that's the dichotomy there. You can forgive someone, but you can't. What was the other side of it?
Excuse.
You can't excuse them.
So karma doesn't excuse.
Karma does not excuse.
It's just law, and everyone has to go through it. But you have a chance of redemption, right?
Exactly.
And that's where forgiveness comes, I guess, or
there's no such thing as forgiveness. You have to pay for what you do. But by the same token, karma is merciful in that it takes into account everything relative to you. You may have had a real problem with alcohol, drinking a lot and stuff like that. and you try to, you try to get over that, and you slip up. It's a little different. You do something terrible as a result of that. That's a lighter karma, according to this student's understanding, than if you have never had a problem with it, and you did that.
Well, I think with excuse, it becomes vicarious atonement.
Exactly.
According to what HPV writes in the Key to Theosophy. She says that this has become a tremendous burden on the civilization of the 20th and 21st centuries because of that condition alone, because it has no substance or basis in law. That vicarious atonement is telling the person they're not responsible what they have done. And she says there is no such law. According to karma, it gives you an opportunity to correct your error and bring balance and harmony into the lives of those you have harmed, including yourself. It will give you an opportunity to correct your error. But with the other side, there is no such thing. And if it wasn't a mistake, then there is no one to forgive or no one to pay for their actions.
Correct.
That was incorrect. And one other thing is that it's your intent and motive that counts the most. If you go out with the intention of harming someone, that carries tremendous burden for you. But if it was an error, then it is a different payment in return.
Exactly.
You still disharmonized, so you have to bring harmony back to its original, where it was before you disharmonized it.
Yeah.
But it is merciful for that reason, that it gives you a repeated opportunity to correct the error.
Yes. So
Yeah,
this is a very encouraging philosophy. This student, the way this student understands it, because we're on this journey toward perfection. We have the opportunity to become perfect. Every one of us has that opportunity, and the law of karma is the one that provides it.
I think it is also called law of hope and
Hope and
responsibility.
responsibility, reincarnation and karma.
Yeah.
Hope is reincarnation, and responsibility is karma.
Right. It's very uplifting that even if we sin unknowingly, or if we do something wrong unknowingly, we still have to pay for it, but under justice. HPV says many places that our world is ruled under the strictest justice, and that we need to understand it. That karma does not forgive in the sense that you're absolved from responsibility what you have done. It forgives because it was an error and gives you another opportunity to correct it. I think that is a wonderful philosophy to have.
Yeah. When we focus on correction and errors,
It's okay.
but the other side of it too, if we do it right with the right motive and all that, I mean those are positive things with respect to karma. I just want to throw that in.
Yeah, I was gonna comment further that it's ethical causation, right? So you have to exhaust all the causes that you've accumulated, and as you exhaust your karma, then I guess you're forgiven, right? You are ready to take on new karma. You're ready to take on new opportunities for further development.
Right, you've learned your lesson.
Yes.
Trying to say, yeah. Now you mentioned ethical causation. This student only saw that when it's in here somewhere. Over there,
Yes.
ethical causation. with respect to humans after you become human, where you supposedly know right from wrong. It's
because we're self-conscious.
Right.
Animals and all the other world are not self-conscious. They do things by instinct. Not only that, they don't make errors through instinct because they follow that 100% of the time. Whereas when we become self-thinking, self-conscious, we have that choice because no one is to interfere with our making choices. But by the same token, we're responsible for the outcome of the choice. And when it becomes vicarious atonement, it says that you're not responsible. And HPV says there is no such law in nature that we must pay for disharmonizing.
Exactly.
But it is also just, and it gives it to us slowly as we go through different lives so that we're not overburdened and broken.
Exactly. Exactly. And in the process of all this, we become, like the student over here said, responsible, more responsible for our own actions as we become more knowledgeable and more experienced.
I think that also opens that other channel of universality, that as we understand the philosophy of Theosophy, it imprints in your heart that expungement of egoism. In other words, that self-centeredness has to be removed from the heart before it can open and blossom. It has to become universal. It has to become attuned to the pain of humanity. There is no way anyone can enter this path without being responsible for their actions, especially the students of Theosophy who undertake that promise unto themselves by signing the declaration saying that they will do their very best to move humanity forward, and then it becomes not just a goal, but an obligation to share it with others, the philosophy.
Yeah, she is becoming selfless, understanding what selfless means. And
exactly.
becoming that.
So the more you learn, the better you're able to give it to others. And that is a reciprocity with nature, because you are working within the nature. And that, again, gives you a better impulse to understand it more, because it opens your intuitive powers as you're struggling to understand it. So you become a better worker. So as the centuries roll on, you're able to take on more work.
Yes. As the voice tells us, as we learn to work with nature, nature will open the doors of knowledge.
Yeah, and of course,
throw all difficulty asunder.
Yeah, and of course, if the heart is pure and it's attuned to the core of nature in doing good for others, then higher influences are attracted to that heart center also.
Exactly.
The influences from the higher regions also come to your aid, giving you a better scope of achieving what you intend to do for humanity.
Yeah.
So it's
the demonic classes, they quietly help us along the way. At our stage, we don't know it.
Exactly.
But they will become more knowledgeable in working in those roles in some perhaps distant future lifetime. We don't even have to be invited to do it. You know?
We have to be somewhere when we do it. But you mentioned gadgets. The gadgets come into being because its prototype is in the astral world. However, it doesn't mean that those people who discover it were not helped. Their leaning is in that direction, but if it is for humanity's betterment, they also get help. Poets, writers, people who write literature. HPV mentions Tolstoy because he had such a great heart. The pulsation of his heart was humanity. How do we improve the condition of poor people? And HPV says that we need writers like him to open the heart. It's the heart that has to open up,
Exactly.
not just the intellectual mind. The mind has to become wise, and the heart has to become intelligent. They have to work together for the hands to be successful in whatever it is undertaken.
Right. That's why, knowledge is so important. Love. Don't go anywhere without love. But you have to know how to deal with love and know when
How to give.
When to help somebody through an individual situation, and try to also encourage them to,
Self-help.
self-help.
Yeah.
Towards self-help. Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
You had a.
Yeah, I wanted to maybe talk about the final destiny of all is through self-effort and merit to consciously reunite with the one life in full possession of Paramartha. My question was in full possession of Paramartha.
Yeah.
Truth.
Paramartha, absolute existence. I was looking at here, that's all it says in regards to that.
Yes.
Any other comments or?
Well, when if we do this all the time. We draw a circle. Okay, that's the highest. When the highest level right there, spiritual level. We over millions of years go down into matter. Okay, and those beings are up. Those beings here. Some of them have already been through that. And that's what we're talking about. When we go down in the matter and come back up, we're fully conscious of dealing in matter. I believe that's the student's understanding.
Well, the first half is always descending into matter, and we have been solidified.
Right.
But going back, we're going to be unsolidified or ethereal.
Ethereal, right.
That's just the way the nature works, because at the beginning we did not have coats of skin. But I'm not quite sure what the student's question exactly is addressing.
Yeah, the question is about absolute existence, I guess, more better understanding of absolute existence. For example, the next term in the glossary is paramartika. It says the one true state of existence according to Vedanta.
Okay, well...
So what is paramartha, what is paramartika?
Yeah. What does she tell you in the Secret Doctrine? She explains it. She says that in the coming cycles, humanity has to learn to live subjectively as well as objectively. Okay, what does that mean? It means we are not going to have a solid body, obviously. And she says you cannot really perceive the absolute truth in a body. So when you have reached the 7th initiation, where are you? You know all, you have experienced all, you are part of the Dhyan host. You have become a god like them. In other words, you have returned home to the other shore, and you carry with you all of the experiences of this cycle. Through each birth you're learning something, and eventually when you meet this philosophy you have turned inward. You're cultivating your inner faculties, and that process is necessary for the advancement of humanity in the coming cycles, because we are going to etherealize, says the Secret Doctrine. However limited the explanation is, we need to understand that we will not be solid, and that probably our procreation is going to go back towards the beginning of the 3rd race, because she shows on page 200 the correspondent races coming down and going up. So as we spiritualize, we're going to change in physical looks, obviously. Subjective means non-solid, right? So those of us who cannot learn to live subjectively, this student's understanding cannot go on the evolutionary process. What she brought out was necessary for us. Right. Otherwise, it would not have been given. After thousands of years of silence, they lifted the corner of the secret doctrine, which covers millions of years of evolution for humanity, and gave us the necessary bit so that we could understand who and what we are and prepare ourselves for this journey. So that's what it means. It means learning to live subjectively. And at the end of that seventh initiation, you have become part of the gods, Dayan Shohans, because you have become the son of a god, according to the voice of the silence.
Does it help to not think about it, about being embodied? For example, a perfected being, and they come to help us more than we might realize in a body. But they have gone through this, right?
But nevertheless, HPV says in the Secret Doctrine that the Pitris had to incarnate physically to initiate that cycle for us, because they were the most advanced entities. They gave their chaya, but who's going to evolve through it? Chaya is the astral body, and without the astral body, we would not have this physical body. So they are our physical progenitors. That's the lineage we come from. Then we have the Kumaras, who lighted the mind. And that's another lineage we have. She says...
Manasaputras?
Sorry?
What's the difference between Manasaputras and Manasaputra?
Kumaras?
Manasaputra?
Manasaputra is mind beings, I
Okay.
believe. Okay?
It's different.
Kumaras are the ones who lighted the mind in the middle of the third race,
Okay.
third root race. Because the mind was not lighted up to that point, then became conscious human beings after that point. And she tells us in the Secret Doctrine that humanity went through a tremendous change in that evolutionary process, from egg-born to sweat-born and other things, until we became placental. So she expresses all of that in the Secret Doctrine. It is very clearly specified. So on our return journey, taking that as an example, then we're going to also change again. What were we? Androgynous. Because she calls budding, I think, that process. When you had another person coming out of the budding process, you gave progeny through the budding process. This student does not understand all of its details, but generally I do understand it, because you're androgynous and you create another human being out of yourself. However, that seems strange to us at this point, but I think we're going back to it. Somewhere along return journey, we're going to become androgynous to be able to live subjectively. Not only are we going to etherealize, but I think we're going to become androgynous according to the Secret Doctrine. It's not very clearly stated, but I think she says enough to give us that indication that it will be so.
Also, we can't think in terms of beginning and end, because even
endless.
in mantra, with this immense period of time,
311 trillion
there was no beginning
years.
at that. We could be, if we go through this process in this mantra, the next mantra, we'd be helping others, or whatever the case may be.
No.
And
Don't
not
skip.
embodied.
You're skipping over, because we're only the fifth subrace of the fifth root. Then we're going to have sixth subrace and seventh subrace. Then we're going to have a period of rest. Then the sixth root race is going to appear on Earth, and they have to go through the same cycle, at the end of which I think Secret Doctrine says the mind in the sixth race is going to work through with no substance to interfere its powers, the mind. So that is development through the evolutionary process, but it requires self-induced, self-devised effort. So we do have to do the work.
Yeah, we have to take a stop, and we're going to have in a few weeks a talk on reincarnation. Maybe more of this will come out then.
We have a round table.
And a round table in a little while, on the Gita, right?